Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. I'm sure you are wondering what foreign voice that is in your ears. Not a Three Man Weave member, couldn't be. That's right, Jim Root is back. I'm here. I missed 2 episodes, a real bad streak for me while I was abroad visiting our good pal Ashok. But hey, he's coming in this weekend for our pal Matt Cox's wedding festivities. Matthew, are you feeling ready? Kai McEwen will get to you in a second, but Matthew, where's your head at right now?
Knocking on wood for Ashok's flight prognosis, not my yes or no prognosis. I will be saying yes. Very excited, of course, for the weekend. Both of you will be focal points of the event. So that's not exactly a loaded itinerary, as you guys probably are realizing. So it's going to be a chill week with the boys. Love's in the air. Family's coming to town tonight. Got a little family shindig. And then just a Sunday fun day. So yeah, Chicago natives, just if you see a different buzz and hoopla in the air this weekend, just kind of that's why.
We're very excited, Matthew, for your big day, your nuptials as they were. About time you tied the knot, right, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've just been long waiting for Matthew to get it all figured out, says the guy who is single and nowhere near tying the knot. But hey, I'm excited for Matt's weekend. Matt, honestly, very pumped for Saturday. Pretty pumped for Sunday too. Just the no rules, roam around. It's going to be a good time.
Loosey-goosey after Saturday. Oh yeah,
going to be great. Going to have the crew together. The Weave will probably post a picture or 3 from we'll see, from the wedding, from wherever we end up. Excited about that. But hey, we are back with a big episode here. Preview season has begun, and that means we kick it off with the mid-major extravaganza.
Dun, 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 dun.
One of our favorite episodes of the season. We go through the 22 typically one-bid leagues. I think there's kind of that divide between the Power 6, the next 4, and then these true mid-major leagues. We're going to go through them in order of KenPom finish last year. So we're going to reward competence and push you to the back if you had a bad season as a group last year. Excited about that. We're going to talk contenders, favorites, any big storylines that are tangential to the league. Very, very excited about that. But first, of course, we have to give a shout out to Jay Pitty, Joey Paskov, our tunes man, the one responsible for our opening theme song. Thank you for all the work that you do. Follow us on Twitter at 3MW_CBB. You're getting the heart of our top 40 countdown. We just broke into the top 25 there. Thread on a team every single day. Some strengths and weaknesses, concerns, advantages going into the year, getting down into the nitty gritty there. We did number 24 UNC today on Wednesday, August 30th. Going to be a team per day rolling out there. So keep an eye on that.
And we also put it on the website too, Jim, by the way.
Oh yeah.
You have a full list on there now.
If you missed a day and you don't want to scroll back, Kai, do we hyperlink to the previous days ones?
Yes, sir.
God, he's a complete. I love when Kai's on it like that. He's cleaning up the admin stuff for Matthew and I as we drop the ball repeatedly. But yeah, check that out, website or Twitter. A lot of good information there. We're happy with what we put out there. Subscribe to the pod on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get it. And of course, leave a review if you feel so inclined. We love the 5-star variety. It truly is our favorite kind of review. And Kai, we have one this week that we're going to get into, but of course, subscribe on YouTube as well. Watch live. We're here. We're talking through the magic of the Zoom machine. We've got a lively chat going right now. So hop in, whether it's this week, next week. I guess you can't do this week if you're listening to it, but next week or in the future, it'll be fun to have the live engagement. You can ask questions as we go through previews of teams, something specific if you're curious about, we will be happy to answer. But Kai, let's talk review. This week, we've got one from Ryan Bookie.
We sure do, Jim. He says, awesome podcast. As usual, never disappoints. Really enjoyed the Jeopardy show, and I'm looking forward to reading through the almanac. That's right, the almanac. Volume 2. Almanac. Buy it now. Links everywhere. He says his question for us, is centered around the transfer portal with the recent years of mid and low major players transferring up to the Power 5, now Power 6, whatever you want to call it. How do you think a basketball team made up entirely of first-team all-conference players from a particular league would fare if they were a team playing against a power conference squad? So would they be an at-large tournament team, for instance, if the first team from the A10 were to form a super team, we'll say? He also asked, what do you think would be the best starting five amongst all the mid-major conferences? Very relevant to today's topic. Jim, do you have an answer?
Well, I think historically we've had some really good teams. I feel like the 3-on-3 has always been a good source of like who the best one is. We had a really good Colonial team a couple of years back, a really good MAAC team, M-A-C. And honestly, I think the MAAC would have been awesome last year. You had Ray J. Dennis and all those lethal offensive players coming from the contenders there. Maddie, our guys at Xavier Castaneda that we never gave enough credit to.
The X-Man. I know, we're sorry. We need to issue a formal apology. Yep.
This coming year, I mean, if we're not counting the true top 10 leagues, it gets a little dicier. There wasn't one that really jumped out to me as like star-studded, Kai.
Yeah.
Maybe the Big West, but even that's probably not the best of the best. Anything for you, Matt, that really jumped out? It was really, I was just thinking about last year and the production from those MAAC guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you'll see when we go through our conferences, as Kai mentioned, in order of competence, the top players returning in a lot of the leagues at the top of the totem pole last year aren't like dazzling names. A lot of guys left. A lot of guys moved on. So like, yeah, do you call those guys mid-major guys? The Valley's intriguing. I was looking at they have some star dudes coming back. I think the best all conference team from like a Missouri Valley level league would be like a middle of the road Big Ten team. You know,
I agree with that. I think they'd be at large caliber.
Yeah,
yes,
at large caliber.
Sure. I agree. Yes.
From the top end leagues. Yeah. I don't think you could take unfortunately, I don't think the NEC All-Stars, the SWAC All-Stars would be an at-large caliber team. Apologies for the shade, but yeah, as you get up closer. Yeah.
Varies so much. You got Christian Keeling and Adam Flagler coming from the same league, and yet two very different paths at the power levels, right?
Very much so. I believe Carlick Jones also came from that same league. Yeah. So yeah, you can have really wild different outcomes depending on how the game translate up to a different level. Thank you, Ryan Bookie, for the kind words and for the great question. Personal corner, of course, as I mentioned, I'm back from overseas. Matt is getting married in 3 days. That means next week, Kai, it's going to be you and me tag teaming the American and the A10 as we let Matt honeymoon off into the sunset, only to return for the WCC and the Mountain West a couple weeks later. But hey, buy the almanac. It is out there on sale right now, discounted for 20% off, $15.99. It'll be live on September 20th. Lots and lots of grinding going on behind the scenes, design, writing, reviewing, editing, figuring out national content. So the work continues behind the scenes. Kai, to quote Qyburn, I believe, from Game of Thrones, the work continues.
Wow.
How about that? A little poll. That's when he's like experimenting on the monster and turning him, or the mountain, turning him into a monster.
I'll give you that one, Jim. Yes, we're very excited about the almanac again. Should be a good preview content once again this season.
Yeah, and if especially kind of ties in great with this particular episode. If we didn't hit your league in depth enough, every single team in that league is going to have 1,300 words or more coming out in that preview. An anonymous coach poll about the best pro prospect, the hardest team to prepare for, a couple other great little questions in there that are awesome nuggets that getting straight from the horse's mouth, the coaches. It's very, very intriguing to see what kind of answers come up there. So definitely make that purchase and enjoy all of the incredible content that comes with it. Guys, let's get into Roots Roundup. That's right. Roots Roundup, talking news and notes across the sport. It's good to be back and host this after Cox's Corner took over. Matthew, appreciate the yeoman's work you did there for 2 weeks.
Thank you. It was not renewed. Contract was discontinued. So
would
the writer's strike. The writer's strike was part of it.
Would you have signed if offered, or are you happy to be?
I would have declined. I would have just highballed with the outrageous offer to get me to stay. But no, it just wasn't a good fit, Jim.
This is good. You're giving me leverage for when I hold out and say I want a better deal on my Roots Roundup contract. We're starting with recruiting news. No super key headlines or coach news. Argentinian forward Lee Alia is headed to Michigan. Another of this huge wave of international prospects committing late. Obviously, UCLA has benefited quite a bit from it. Xavier's got a couple guys. Kentucky got their big center coming from abroad. Kai, this I think ties in with NIL opportunities opening up where guys don't have to stay in Europe to make money and get a pro contract. Now they can come over and play here. I do hesitate with the immediate impact. We talked about it a little bit on the pod already. But I think everybody just says, oh, he was talented, put up good stats in a FIBA event. He's immediately going to be a superstar contributor for us. Let's hold on there.
Yeah, we've talked about it. People overrate the impact of international guys immediately on the whole. And they probably will again with this guy.
Yep. I think there's projectable stuff with them.
Relax, wait.
It's almost like junior college guys. Usually the second year is when really, really comes to fruition and becomes a profitable contributor at the D1 level. And of course, Marcus Adams Jr. back into, I guess it's the portal because he had already enrolled. So he's not technically a recruit, but we're going to bring him up here. He is now looking for his third school, and fall practice hasn't even started yet. He left Gonzaga. Matt, what's going on here? Do you think this is a red flag? Or are you going to bet on the talent if you're a school that's looking at him?
I think it's a red flag, but worth betting on if you're the right school with a major need, and are sort of looking at like you looking for some upside, maybe, Kai? I don't know what school or what. I haven't heard really the rumor or the suitors for him behind the scenes, but I think his talent's still worth taking a shot on, though.
He wouldn't be coming to my school. I'll tell you that much.
Wow.
I don't care. Yeah.
Ironclad program.
That's a huge red flag. And he wouldn't stay around for the following year. I can guarantee it.
And I'll be the Urban Meyer. I'll be the Urban Meyer of our college basketball coaching world here. Just taking all baggage. Send it my way.
We're going to talk another player of this ilk in the suspension/dismissals section coming up in about 2 minutes here. The red flags abound for these guys that just cannot commit to a single school. In the class of 2024, small forward Zion Sensley is headed to St. Mary's. This is going to be the third straight year, Mateo, where St. Mary's is going to have a top 100-ish recruit. Got Aiden Mahaney from last year, Jordan Ross coming in this year, and now Sensley. All domestic guys, too. This isn't like Bennett is dipping into New Zealand and Australia like typical. He's getting guys from California to want to play there. The style works. I mean, maybe it's not what everybody wants to play, but if you get the right guy that fits in, it's clearly going to pay off for the Gales, and they look like they're in for yet another strong season. Oh, Matthew muted himself. That's too bad. We're going to have to.
He does that.
Talk over his.
I was going to scream over the mute. That doesn't actually work though. No, yeah, just Bennett. When you talk to him, as I mentioned in the last podcast, just like the most calm and serene individual I've ever spoken to. Just kind of knows he's got it going on right now. A quiet swagger, a quiet drip about him. Oh, I love it.
Quiet.
Bet on the Gales.
He was just on John Rothstein's podcast, I believe, too, and kind of gave off that same vibe, Matthew. Like, I know what I've got going on. I don't need to leave. I don't need to head anywhere. So next offseason, we don't need to mention him for every Pac-12 opening that opens up. I think he's pretty content at St. Mary's.
Yeah.
Injuries and suspensions and dismissals here. We're going to start with a positive injury news, which we love to do. Bronny James at USC, they have diagnosed what happened with his cardiac arrest. It was a congenital heart defect, but the prognosis sounds really optimistic. Like it's treatable. They didn't go so far as to say he'll be on the court this year, but they did say they think he'll be back soon. It hinted like he could play for the Trojans this year. Would be massive for them because, guys, behind the scenes, we just talked a little bit about USC and their lack of guard depth. Kai, I know you don't love the circus around Bronny and LeBron, and oh my God, he's in college, but he can be a legitimate positive contributor for a team that needs some perimeter defense, especially.
Yes, looking at USC, he was more important than I initially expected, and it's mainly and Goodman points this out too in his preview of USC teaser for the Almanac. He's important because they have no guard depth without him, like zero, and that's a huge issue. It's going to be Ellis and Collier playing 35 plus minutes per game, which can be good, but I think defensively, it's really going to force them to suffer on the perimeter. So he's actually a lot bigger than I expected. It's definitely preventing them from reaching their ceiling with him being out.
Yep, very much so. Matthew?
Yeah, that, and I think what's because of the coverage surrounding that, people have forgotten about. Jim, give me a name check on Vincent Iwuchukwu.
Yeah, close enough. That's
close enough?
Right,
okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Right. So former 5-star guy came in last year, had a ton of hype, battled injuries, was never really a key part. I think people are kind of buying some upside with him too. I mean, like he was pretty close to the caliber of recruit that Mobley was, that Onyeku was, or sorry, Okongwu. Thank you. So, I mean, that and Bronny, like if they get positive swings in the health department on both those guys, I think that defense could be really good.
Yep, that is the concern. We'll see. I mentioned to Matt maybe Enfield will bring back his zone, and he quickly yelled at me, "No, please don't."
I texted Kai. Do you have Andy's number? Please text him. Tell him to stop that.
No,
just say stop.
We're public enemy number one because of you.
Yeah,
I thought one of us spoke with them since no, he's always hated us. USC, the SID department, they don't like us either. So fissures have been great.
Yeah.
We'll bounce back. All right. The aforementioned bad egg / red flag is Dior Johnson. He is gone at Pitt. He had, I believe I read he played at 10 different high schools. He committed to 3 different schools without ever playing there. Just a guy who has bounced around, never been able to find the right fit. I don't know how much of it is him, how much of it is having horrific advisors in his circle and his camp. But regardless, he is no longer a Pitt Panther. He had a legal investigation last year, looked to be in line to play with them this year. He traveled to their foreign tour, did not play, but was with them, came back and has been let go. I believe it was announced Jeff Capel wasn't really even a part of this. This was like the administration chose to do this. But regardless, at least Pitt in kind of a dire spot at point guard, going to rely on 2 freshmen, going to be maybe putting Ishmael Leggett there, the Rhode Island transfer. I don't know, man. I'm not real high on the Panthers as a trying to repeat their success from last year.
Yeah, selling it, Jim. Hard. Sorry, Jeff. Good year.
Sell.
But nothing going this year.
Expectation is never a great thing for them. They like when they're way down there and can outperform them. Other random news and notes, staying in kind of that area in the state of Pennsylvania. St. Joe's got a new hawk costume, Kai, the unflappable, unstoppable hawk at St. Joe's. There was a fun article about how it was getting like tattered. The costume seemed like it was going to fall apart. They were having a harder time getting replacement feathers because the producer doesn't need to make them anymore. So they've got a new one. It's a little more streamlined. It seems like it's more lightweight. One of they had a quote from one of the students that wears it and was like, "I love this new thing. I'm not worried about it falling apart anymore. I'm so excited."
The wear and tear.
Exactly. Hey, I'm just glad they're still going to keep the hawk and they're not completely doing away with the constant flapping. It's just getting a new look. It's getting a new look.
If anybody's confused, the St. Joe's mascot, the hawk, he or she flaps the entire game. It's a rule as the mascot of the school, even during timeouts. And you see him in the background on broadcasts. It's hilarious to watch. But God, I have really strong shoulders to do that, and good rhythm and patience. So glad to hear the new uniform is lightweight and maybe better for the wearer of the costume.
There's probably some like electronic booster feature where it's actually a robot just doing the arm thing, and the guy just puts his like an Iron Man thing. I don't know if I trust this. I think there's some nefarious behavior with the design behind the scenes.
Oh, Maddie woke on the St. Joe's Hawk. Glad to have the tinfoil hat on that one. Excited. The Maui Invitational location is still to be determined. I saw an article about that this week. This is a really, really tough situation where I'm sure it will be good for the island in a way to have that, tourism money come in and have this event that everybody kind of rallies around. And apparently the Lahaina Civic Center was not really damaged by the wildfires, but it's also difficult because 115 people passed away in the fires and they're still kind of dealing with rebuilding the infrastructure and just the ramifications that come from that. So Kemper Lesnick, I believe, is the company in charge, and are still mulling options with that. Tough for people with travel plans to it, but that's obviously secondary concern relative to just getting the island back on its feet. Hopefully we can see Maui this year. If not this year, then next. That's for sure. Lastly, here, before we move on from Roots Roundup, a bunch of coaches took part in Matt Norlander's and really CBS's coaches poll that they do. It's kind of a weekly thing. They've been releasing, I think, one new question every week. This week it was rules. And Kai, we could spend an hour deciphering, discussing, either supporting or throwing darts at the suggestions from a lot of the coaches. Are there any in particular that jumped out at you that you really just want to get off of your chest here before we move on?
I just want to say, if you want a 24-second shot clock in college basketball, you're not a true college basketball fan.
Wow.
You're not.
Kind of agree. Kai, whoa,
it takes, we've talked about it before, but it takes all the stylistic nuances of the game and it throws it out the window and it makes it homogenous and it makes it pro style. And that's not what college sports is all about. And I will be very sad when this happens because it seems like inevitability at this point.
I'm fully with Kai here. I think you're just not looking at college basketball as college basketball. If you want this, you're just saying, let's match other places and it's totally going to make the game better as kids get used to it. But it takes away the ability to play slowly and take a little more life out of the game for a team with a talent gap. And there's no other league that has talent gap the way college basketball does. There's 360 teams. Right. Oh, a 24-second shot clock works for a league with 30 teams, or in Europe where the teams play in the same league of a lot of relatively equal talent level.
Right.
Giving teams more flexibility in terms of style is part of the beauty of college. It's part of the beauty of having this longer shot clock and having differences in talent. I'm so against this, adamantly against this. And it's tough because there are people whose opinions I respect that want it. Mr. Ken Pomeroy.
Yes.
And I just don't think they're processing what this would do to the sport as a whole. It's like, oh yeah, watching Big 12 games on TV on Big Monday might be better.
Sure.
But as a whole, I don't think it helps the sport.
You would kill mid-majors, you would kill upsets, and you would kill there'd be no upsets anymore. It would be dominance by the top 5 leagues is what you would get.
Yeah, it's just tough because the people we like.
Defend your side, Matt. Defend your side, because we just went on a tirade against it.
You know me, Matty Fencerard does not pick sides. I'm just trying to. Ken Pomeroy, Fran Frischel. I mean, some kings in the college basketball.
Fran Frischel's watching Big 12 games every week. He's announcing Big 12 games. He wants a faster game. Sure, fine.
It comes down to, do you want a higher quality game or do you want a more diverse game? I think the latter is what we think of college basketball as being the most fun.
I don't think 24 means higher quality. I think it means less quality for certain leagues.
Over time, it sort of forces
maybe
the skill development of players. So I think over time, like in 10 years, you actually would start to see, like, you don't have guys out there who are just one trick pony, like athlete rims. I just feel like it would make the game, it would up the skill level if we went 24. That said, I'm devoutly a fan of 30 where we're at right now. Let's not change anything. Why are we talking about this? I understand the implications behind it, the reason behind it, but it's just not. It's not us. It's not us.
It's not for us.
It's not us.
Especially as we talk mid-majors today. We can't, parade around some idea that's going to be clearly actively harmful for them in their bids to get upsets in the NCAA tournament and try to play on closer to an even footing with some of the power conference teams and their better resources, quite frankly. So there's a lot of other rules proposed in there, that some of which I agree with, to be quite honest, and some of which I don't. But we won't dwell on that. Again, maybe that should be a off-season topic next year, Kai. Let's put this in a folder and talk through all of these ideas next July, and we'll do that.
Deal.
But that's it for Roots Roundup. We're going to now officially move into the mid-major extravaganza. As I mentioned, we're going to go in order of Ken Pom finish last year, his rankings of 1 through 33, technically with independents, but 1 through 32 of conferences. And really, that's doing a favor to the A10, Kai, because they finished like 14th or something. They didn't not actually finish in the top 10 as we would expect from the top 10 leagues. But we're kicking it off with Conference USA, a conference I wrote for the Almanac. It is a completely new look league. 6 teams left. I'm not going to try to list them all because I will definitely forget 1 or 2. But we also have 4 new teams coming in: Sam Houston State, New Mexico State, Liberty, and Jacksonville State. So it's down to a 9-team conference. And I will say, having done ratings for this and having previewed it, it is incredibly parity ridden. Mm-hmm. Even the teams I'm picking last, I see upside that they could theoretically win the league. Maybe it's not as likely as some of the other teams, but I think all 9 teams can win the conference this year. But Matt, I'm going to call the favorites Liberty and Louisiana Tech. Liberty, of course, loses Darius McGee. Louisiana Tech brings in Daniel Bacho from Texas Tech. He's going to be a monster. Plenty of other contenders here. What jumps out to you from this league? Does any team maybe intrigue you more than some of the others, especially as I just laid out that they're all somewhat equal?
Yeah, the league just looks way worse and watered down with who left and how awesome the teams are that who left last season. But yeah, it's like deceptively a really good league again, even though it kind of has like a skeleton representation base with its membership at this point. I think like 8 teams can win it. I don't think Jacksonville State's that good. But like, I'd love Louisiana Tech. I mean, Liberty, Middle Tennessee, Sam Houston, a lot of really good coaches with maybe some roster question marks, but just a lot of really, really good coaches that I think just will make this league an absolute dogfight night in, night out.
I agree. That's a great point, Matt. Kai, to you, just the amount of players that left is staggering, like stars, even the teams joining, like I said, McGee from Liberty and New Mexico State replaced 13 scholarship guys, all of them. Sam Houston State lost some star power. So yeah, Kai, it's very much like, are you betting on coaches? Are you trying to find the best roster? Curious how you perceive this league.
Yeah, the coaches are awesome. I was going through this. I was like, well, I don't want to bet against Jason Hooten. I don't want to bet against Steve Lutz. I don't want to bet against Richie McKay. It's like, this is a really tough league to choose. Like you said, Jim, it's a parity league. I can see Jacksonville State actually kind of surprising. Ray Harper had a down year, but he clearly disliked that team last season. And he's finished around 150 in the country, 5 of the past 7 seasons, which would have been like 5th last year in Conference USA, or excuse me, not 5th, but middle of the pack in Conference USA last season. So I think even they have a chance to compete in this league.
Yep. Kiki Tandy could be like the best player in the league. He has that potential. I mean, he was like a double digit scorer as a freshman in the Big East. He's just been destroyed by injuries, which certainly did not help Jacksonville State at all last year. But again, no UAB, no North Texas. Those two have been dominant for a while now. And then Florida Atlantic became the true juggernaut last year. They are also gone wide open at the top. We could see quite a race here, quite a bit of parity and a fun Conference USA tournament, though not, I believe, not the Frisco Disco anymore, which RIP, Matthew, one of our favorite venues.
Yeah. Probably a good thing for everyone involved. I guess North Texas was kind of the quasi home benefactor from that. So now I assume it goes to a more neutral location. It's probably a good thing.
Yeah. And I think North Texas liked the fact that no one could shoot in that backdrop.
Yeah. It was they had conducive. The 20-minute drive, and then they had the backdrop that was perfect for their maniacal defense.
Yep, indeed. All right, let's move on to the WAC. Going out to the Wild WAC. Really strong year for this league last year. But of course, 2 teams that have been solid for years. New Mexico State won it seemingly every year until last year. Mm-hmm. They're gone. And then Sam Houston State also been really surging under, as Kai mentioned, Jason Hooten. He has gone to New Mexico State, interestingly enough, kind of a weird like love triangle between those programs and leagues. But Kai, top of the league, probably Grand Canyon, Stephen F. Austin, Seattle. There's some different directions you could go here. What are you looking at with the WAC?
I think it's Grand Canyon by a lot. In my opinion.
Grand Canyon size
margin? By a canyon size margin, yes. Best backcourt by far, best coach in the league, in my opinion. And without Mark Madsen, I don't trust Utah Valley to be very good. I think Southern Utah is going to struggle with a coaching change. I do love SFA all the time. I think Chris Victor's done a great job at Seattle, but yeah, it's Grand Canyon for me. And then Matt, whatever you think Tarleton's going to be this year, they'll be better.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Don't bet against them. I mean, Grand Canyon's roster looks like a power conference roster at this point. I mean, Tyon Grant Foster, that name should ring a bell to some of you out there, former Kansas, highly touted JUCO recruit.
Really good.
Is he going to play ever?
Top 100 player in the country per 3-man weave, I think.
Yep.
So, I mean, he might be Grand Canyon's 3rd best guard. I mean, he may not even play. I have no idea what his status is, but just for context, that has a ton of Bryce Drew, tangled talent. I like Seattle. Chris Victor, Cam Tyson. Cam Tyson is like Houston would love Cam Tyson on their team this year. Like he would start over multiple of those other guys. I think he's that good. He's awesome. Shoots from anywhere, can defend. Ton of guys back. Good
Matt, he's not starting over LJ Cryer or Jamal Shedd. Get out of here.
Okay, fine. He's probably their 3rd best.
I can't let it stand. Yeah, no, the WAC is difficult. Like Kai said, it's probably Grand Canyon, but we've seen some topsy-turvy finishes in this league before. I believe Matt was on the Seattle bandwagon. Was it last year or 2 years ago where he called the Seattle win in like January and they got really, really close to pulling it off. There's certainly different directions you could go.
8-0 start last year. Sorry, 2 years ago. Yeah. They're
7-0 last year. He started hot both years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Maybe the travel wears on them because they're not near any other school in the conference. That's not really ideal. All right, let's go next to the Ivy, back across the country to the East Coast. The Brainiacs, the original 8 here.
Nerds.
Clear favorite atop the league, Matthew. It's Yale. James Jones had a juggernaut last year, brings back arguably 4 of his top 5 players. Bezimbang is defending defensive player of the year. They just they have to figure out the paint because they lost both of their centers that were great on the glass and as rim protectors. But I mean, Princeton's right there. That's the team that was the darling, made the Sweet 16 last year, Matthew. Am I counting them out too quickly by calling Yale the clear favorite?
No, you're not. This the continuity. You're right, Jim. Every team has so many key pieces coming back. The general Ivy theme, I think we've seen now play out for multiple years, is there's never like a really super hype team coming into non-conference or to the season. They certainly have like the star power cachet. They also tend to play like really brutal schedules, and they don't like ever get like marquee wins to get people's attention. They play in the conference, no one really follows them, but they always surprise people in March. Like the number of upsets and near upsets that the Ivies churn out year in, year out, multiple programs. Obviously, it's been mostly Yale, lately Princeton, the darling last season. Sorry, Mizzou faithful. But like, I think that theme continues. Like you'll probably forget about this league in January. I bet they have two really good teams that are going to probably make a second weekend, be a threat to make a second weekend run in the tournament.
But if you're a bettor, you're very aware of the Ivy in November and December, because these teams tend to do very well in non-conference because they are underrated and they're smartly coached, and they're very tough to prepare for if you're not used to their style of play. That's why we think, in my opinion, I'll say just my opinion, that's why I think the Ivy is so good in the tournament, is because their style of play is so hard to play against when you're not used to it. I think it's Yale's league. Jones sneakily kind of owns the Ivy. The last time they weren't 1 or 2 was 2018. He has 5 top 100 KenPom finishes in 9 years, and he has a lot returning. So I think it's Yale. Jim, is Brown a sneaky like dark horse team here? I feel like we say that every other year, but I really think it might be true this year. And then Penn, Princeton, always good. Harvard, TBD. And then Daniel,
Keno Lilly and Chemo Ferrari, all named backcourt. Great backcourt for the Brown Bears.
I don't believe Brown has made the Ivy tournament yet. So it's like hard to get super pumped about them. Remember. It's like, all right, we need them to break through and actually get to that level. But they've done a great job recruiting defense in a league that constantly emphasizes all the offensive execution. Martin's really, really built from that end of the floor. And now they've got a little bit more offensive punch too with that backcourt that Matt alluded to. But just like when I do my ratings for every team, I list the number of starters returning, just kind of like a place to begin. And the Ivy, it's like 4, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. And every other league, it's like 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. So there's just way more continuity here from the top of the rosters. And there might be even more if they allowed grad students to play. Like if Chris Ledlam could have stuck at Harvard for a 5th year, there's a chance he'd be back. And, you know, it's weird to see Harvard kind of fall off the map because they were so good for a while. They were recruiting like above everybody else, but some of the talent is caught up and the coaching is so good all across the league that Harvard has fallen back a little bit relative to the rest of the strength of the conference.
Jim, I saw Cornell took a JUCO kid. I thought that was kind of funny. How often you see a JUCO guy go to an Ivy League school? It just doesn't really, not the path generally taken, as the poem doesn't say that. It says something.
Yeah, you'd imagine the admissions process is pretty tough going from one to the other there. But yeah, hey, he's supposed to be a versatile defensive piece, Matthew, for Cornell, and they desperately need that after being very tilted towards the offensive end of the floor. All right, next up, the Sun Belt. Guys, I don't even want to call anybody a favorite here because last year, Southern Miss won after getting picked 13th in the preseason poll out of 14. 2 years ago, Texas State won after getting picked 10th out of 12 in the preseason poll. The first year we ever wrote previews on this on every conference, I wrote the Sun Belt and just whiffed so horrifically badly. Yeah, I think it was Arlington, and I'd picked them like 10th and said they didn't have upside. I just never can make sense of this league. There's a lot of parity. It's kind of a, how do teams crest in one single year? Health is a big factor. Ty, which roster jumps out at you, or rosters? Which teams are you keeping your eye on with the Sun Belt?
This is probably the biggest cluster of a league, I think, in the country. I have 9 teams ranked very close to each other, and I have like 10 in the same vicinity. So it's very tough to choose a favorite here. I think James Madison's my pick, but I think App State's going to be good. South Alabama is always good. Southern Miss is going to be good. Arkansas State sleeper team. It's funny that 2 Alabama assistants are now head coaches in this league, with Charlie Henry at Georgia Southern and Hodgson at Arkansas State. I think they are the sleeper team. Matt Marshall might be down, Old Dominion up. And then one more, don't sleep on Texas State. I think they're going to be a factor this year. They were very bitten by the injury bug last season. And Terrence Johnson has proven that he can bring this team up to the top of the conference, despite what the paper might say, Matthew.
How about Dusty Kearns and App State? Appetizer State? Like that roster too. Yeah, it's just it's a league that I think we're starting to see as the conference realignment stuff shakes out. This is always a league that was trending in the up direction, with just, program investment, financing, coaching. I think the parity is going to really shine through this year, but everyone will kind of continue to move up and up as we've seen the Sun Belt do. There's just not a lot of bad in this league. It's tough to cut out the fat when you have 14 teams, but there isn't a ton here. There really isn't.
Yeah, well, and the teams they added, bringing Marshall, Old Dominion, and Southern Miss over from Conference USA, were all really good.
Yes. Yep.
Like I said, Southern Miss won last year. Marshall was right there to win the league, and Old Dominion's just kind of a metronome that's always solid year after year under Jeff Jones. So it's this one's tough to figure out. I guess I'd pick James Madison right now, another team they recently added from the Colonial, but man, it is a challenge to sort out the Sun Belt. All right, back across the country we go here, slingshotting back and forth. We're talking Big West next. Favorites, I mean, you really got to talk about a bunch of different teams here based on production last year, historical cachet in this league. UC Irvine is the obvious team name to mention, but then UC Santa Barbara has been awesome. They've got the reigning player of the year in AJ Mitchell. Long Beach State and Hawaii both had really good years. I know Matty loves his bows. Matt, what are you looking at in this league? Who's really jumping out to you as a team that could win the Big West?
Again, another league that just kind of flew under the radar and shot up the conference standings last year. Just again, the middle is really deep. I mean, Hawaii, UC Davis is kind of a team that could be really good this year. Fullerton, we thought would maybe drop off after they had the two awesome guards a few years back, but like they've been sneaky feisty the whole time. Like the top 8, 9 have, they've done their part. But yeah, hopefully at the bottom you get some coaching improvements from Cal State Northridge. Sorry, Trent Johnson just kind of had to say it. And then Cal State Bakersfield. We love Mr. Rod Barnes, at least I do. The Runners.
I'm done.
But we have got to stop playing basketball like it's the Stone Ages. We got to try something different this year, boys. We got to try something new. Jump shots are good. Shooting is cool.
Yeah. It's just having guys that are willing to shoot them and playing a little. In the Almanac preview, again, kind of peek behind the curtain here, he talks about we need to continue playing fast. Like, man, you've been bottom 50 in tempo nationally every year. What are you talking about? Like, it's
coach speak.
Yeah. Part of it is, the way they defend, but yeah, they're not really trying to get out in transition. Kai, who do you like here? Give me your Big West team to watch.
Well, without looking, I said Irvine and Santa Barbara. They've been 1-2. They've been 1-2 for the past 5 seasons in this league. Santa Barbara's my pick, reigning player of the year, and a Power 5 front court coming in. They haven't proven much, Clements and Trior, but
Clements is at Kansas. He's not coming in.
Oh, he's not coming to Santa Barbara.
He's redshirting at Kansas. Yep.
Okay, well, I made a mistake there. I still like them with Trior up front. He hasn't done much, obviously, at this level yet, but the pedigree is there. I think Hawaii looks good, like you guys said. Irvine, obviously. I'm trying to quit CSUN, guys. Once again, they look kind of talented on paper.
We're right back into it, Kai. Come on.
I'm tired of quitting them. And then Fullerton, I feel like this is this league's Tarleton the past couple of years. Wherever you think they're going to finish, Dedrick Taylor somehow is going to outperform it. The past 2 years, he has surprised me. So I'm going to probably stop doubting them, Jim.
Yeah, it's a shame if DJ Davis and Dawson Baker stay at Irvine, they might be the best mid-major team in the country. Like maybe not quite FAU potential, but could have really taken off. Now they got a little bit more questions in the backcourt scoring department. We know they're always dominant defensively in that interior. Like they just have size for days. Russell Turner always secures that. So I'm going to go Irvine, but Maddie, I'm real close to siding with your bows.
Just take the bow. You got the whole narrative this year, the island disaster. Oh my goodness. It's like, I think we're going to see some of that on the gridiron. Those of you who watch Hawaii football.
They're not on the same island. I think
it's
get out of here.
I know, but it's I think they're going to play for their island. So they haven't been impacted by the disaster, Jim, but they're going to rally spiritually around the devastation and rise. You get Juan Munoz back. They're starting PG, who missed all last season. Devastating injury. Heart and soul the team. My guy McClanahan, the Bulldog. Oh, it's a fun story. I hope they do they make some real noise in the Diamond Head this year. Because that's what people actually care about basketball.
For them to just actually stay healthy would be fun.
Yeah.
They've really, really struggled with that in recent years. But have succeeded anyways. All right, Kai, I'm going to let you set the table for the next league because you wrote it for the Almanac, the Missouri Valley.
One of our favorite leagues, guys, being St. Louis adjacent, all 3 of us, including Jim there. He lived there for a few years. Drake is the favorite once again, but I don't think it's very clear cut. I feel like last year it was kind of a unanimous Drake is going to win this league, and they didn't even win the league. Bradley won the league. But this season, I think they're just a smidge above with the reigning player of the year, Tucker DeVries, coming back, and somehow also Darnell Brody. Was not expecting him to be back. I talked to Darren DeVries, and he said, yep, Brody's back. It's like, all right, COVID year is nuts in college basketball. But Bradley's going nowhere. Brian Wardell's a fantastic coach, and Malevi Leon is going to be awesome this season. He's going to be awesome. Breakout explosion. We love the Panthers of you and I, Matthew. They bring everyone back. And then Missouri State. I mentioned this on a previous podcast. A lot of coaches I talked to in the Missouri Valley picked them as sort of like a top 2 team, which surprised me a little bit.
Man.
Yeah. What do you think, Matt?
No, I can't get there with them, but I think that my point was going to be, look at teams like programs with great historical cachet: Belmont, Missouri State, Southern Illinois, Murray State, Illinois State. I mean, I don't think any of those teams are going to finish top 3, because Northern Iowa, I think, is awesome. I think Drake is awesome. Undisputably in Indiana State, every year we think they can only be so good. Yeah. But they're going to be awesome again because Josh Schertz is phenomenal. So I just feel bad for Evansville and Valpo. I know Roger Powell, former Illinois standout, taking over the Valpo this year. Maybe some buzz. I don't think that's going to be bad.
He is buzz as a coach, but their roster's terrible.
Roster's bad. And Evansville's just like, they have a D3 roster. So tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your bottom 2. Well, Matt, the top 3 you named, I'm still slotting Bradley in there because, as Kai mentioned, Leon's is like, they should probably maybe the best defensive player in the league. He can guard everybody.
4.
It's tough to take out Rink Mass, but you had Marion Ellis from Marquette. Kyle Thomas from Eastern Illinois was voted the best pro prospect in the OVC last year. He didn't really do much as a freshman, but he had a lot of good offers, and I think he could blossom, maybe playing for a coach that's really proven he can develop big guys. But yeah, Matt, the Indiana State Sycamores too. It's a team we always love with Schertz and the varying talent and different style that he plays in this league, a little more up-tempo and offensive heavy relative to the rest of the MVC.
The league has kind of opened up. Belmont comes in, you have Bradley kind of shifting how they play. I just think it's not as
Murray State too,
stuck in the mud. Yeah, right. I think you actually have some diversity in style, which is cool.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the tempo, average tempo. They're up to 21st last year.
Yeah.
If you go back through it, they're 30th, 31st, 32nd. So up to 21st, definitely a little faster for the Valley relative to the past, especially considering, like Matt mentioned, the programs that they've added. Next up, the Big Sky. Favorites probably Weber State, just looking at the roster and the talent they've got there. But obviously they've recently undergone a coaching change. Montana up there. Eastern Washington was the team that dominated last year. They take some hits to their personnel. Matthew, what are you looking at in the Big Sky? Who jumps out to you? No Danny Sprinkle anymore at Montana State. Yep. He was fantastic.
Just a great narrative with Eastern Washington. Remember, they were undefeated, 18-0 in the conference, and they lost 2 of their final 3.
16-0, yeah.
16-0, and then lost 2 of their final 3, and then flamed out early in the tournament. They lose a lot, but I just think, again, the Eastern Washington coaching oasis that they all drink from. I don't know what's in that water, but David Riley is like just as good as Legans and Victor and Hafer. Like that, they just continue to shock you with what they do. I think Weber is the best team in this league. They got some just insane talent. I mean, Dylan Jones is a pro, and they got a ton of like 25-year-olds. So yeah,
I agree on Weber. Is this league kind of down, like across the board
for sure?
Yep.
It felt down to me. Yeah. Well, preview almanac here. So Portland State was voted toughest team to prepare for by the Big Sky coaches, which
press.
I thought was fun. Jace Coburn maybe getting a little momentum there. But yeah, I think it's Montana's shot to climb back up to the top. I mean, the league is kind of wide open besides Weber State, but boy, they've been mediocre lately. Is it time for DeKire? I actually don't know how to pronounce Travis DeKire's. I'm going to say DeKire. Is it time for him to kind of be shown the door, guys? He's had a lot of years there, and it just hasn't been great lately.
They got to be good this year.
We love Northern Colorado, Northern Arizona coaches, but the talent is gone.
Yeah, it's not quite as strong with them. And Kai, I don't want to steal another thing from the almanac, but Sacramento State.
Yeah,
just David Patrick accumulates talent. Mm-hmm. Last year they played super slow on offense to kind of cater to Callum McRae, the absolute 7'2" giant that they employed in the paint, but they might be able to open it up a little bit more. There's just a lot of talent and athleticism on that roster. I can see David Patrick bumping them up. He did a nice job with UC Riverside, kind of setting the table for Mike Magpayo, and now potentially could do the same there at Sacramento State. Next up, moving on to the ASUN. Again, going to kick it over to Mr. McEwen, the author of the ASUN for the Almanac.
What a great league. Wow. Best ever last season for the ASUN by a mile. The league really improved. And then, of course, now they lose Liberty and Jacksonville State to other conferences. Amir Abdur-Rahim, the star coach last season of Kennesaw State, is now coaching at South Florida. But there's still a lot of talent here. Eastern Kentucky is going to be the sexy choice for this league.
Oh, they're sexy, baby.
I mean, I think they're awesome this season. Bring back so much talent. They play a fun style. A.W. Hamilton is a guy you can rally around. But Matt, don't count out the Florida Gulf Coast Eagles. They were awesome last season in the non-con. They beat USC in game 1. Their former coach had a statement. And then Chambers, I talked to him this offseason. He just said he really didn't know what happened after Christmas. He said they just kind of became a different team. No worries this year, though. He thinks they're going to be good. And then it's a cluster of teams. Like, choose your own adventure for the next 7 or 8 of them. All I know is Central Arkansas is not good, and North Florida's way down, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, Gulf Coast is a fascinating story, right? So Pat Chambers, the success he had at Penn State prior to leaving, this is his new reclamation project. They were flirting with top 100 in KenPom by December 31st. And you're right. Once conference play hit, the wheels just fell off. I mean, really bizarre talent. I still think he's a really good coach. I don't know if that's just going to be call that a mulligan and they bounce back this season because they have a ton of pieces. The league, again, really good league. The ASUN picking teams like Lipscomb, Queens from the D2, D3 ponds, smart play. It's bode well for him on the hoops for sure.
Yeah. The other one you didn't mention in that group is Bellarmine. And I think they're going to be awesome this year. One of the teams that most benefits from continuity because of the intricacy of the offensive system. Kind of like the no dribble, balls just moving all the time. And they bring back everybody but one key piece, essentially, from their rotation. They get Kai, the Peter Suter freshman to sophomore leap. He could immediately be a true star. I think they're going to be kind of in the business of some of those upper teams. And this is the first year since they've come up that I've been really on board of North Alabama. So not picking them to win. I'm on board EKU, but I think North Alabama is going to rock.
I do too. It was their first winning season last year. I think they were kind of invigorated by being out of the shackles of the 4-year transition period. They have real expectations this season. So I'm on board with the Lions too.
I'll shout out old BMOC because he was the one who really alerted me to Jakari Lane.
He's great.
When he really took over as the guy down the stretch, North Alabama took off.
Freshman of the year, he'll be awesome.
Yep. Matthew, kicking to you now for the MAAC, Mid-American, a league, as Pat Taylor in the chat said, needs to start playing defense at some point, but I'm okay with them not doing it yet. Matthew, what are we looking at in the MAAC this upcoming season?
I'm trying to find my conference page to get the exact number, but a league that was gutted by outbound production, especially at the top of the food chain, with what Kent State loses, Toledo loses, the darlings of last year. The story is Akron. I just think this team has all of the makings of a really, really special mid-major team. Maybe the ceiling's not all the way there, but John Gross has certainly had some March magic before in mid-majordom.
I love just another almanac tease, the way you painted the picture of this is a 2022 redux because of returning Dawson and Ali. It was a very well-written preview.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's a great, like I said, they had 2 starters back from that team that almost probably should have beat UCLA in the first round, a really good UCLA team. Ugly type of style, but yeah, they could be good. I think the story is the usual suspects are good at the top, and then it's a massive drop off to 5 through 12 because Northern Illinois, Ball State, Miami, Eastern Michigan, Buffalo, Bowling Green, Western, Central. You could paint a rosy picture for all those teams, but they're just right. None of those teams win the league this year. I just don't think so.
Are we allowed to fade? Are we allowed to fade Toledo this year? That's my question.
I think so. I think TFA is disbanded this season. They're going to be human. Yeah. They're the 5th best offensive team in the country last year. Holy cow. That's incredible. Akron's my pick. I think Kent State's going to be good again, like Matt said. I really like Ohio. Ohio returns a lot. Jeff Bowles is the man. Yeah, give some love. And Jim, I guarantee you Miami of Ohio underachieves. We're going opposite of Tarleton.
Wow, Travis Steele shade. It ain't Travis Steele shade. I don't know what the fans think of him there. I feel like the forums are always back and forth on.
I can tell them what to think, but
yeah, unfortunately, just huge upgrade.
Yeah, I'm excited about Bowling Green, Matt. That's upgrade. One.
Yep.
Yeah, we just kind of started to tear our hair out on Mike Huger's regime and just how up and down that team would be, inconsistent game to game. Todd Simon's not a total solve for that, but Southern Utah gets up and down, a lot of offensive pieces. He brings in some guys that I think could really contribute right away. Trey Thomas had a down year shooting the ball at Vanderbilt, but I think he could be a weapon in the MAAC. I'm excited. I think Bowling Green could get up, maybe flirt with top 5 here.
it's an unreal year for a team that will never have any business finishing the top 5 or top 3 to maybe creep in there if everything breaks right. Like you could say it's like Northern Illinois, maybe a team that was kind of feisty and had some weird guys coming over last year. They had some dudes coming back. Our Huskies, can we call them our Huskies as a super west suburb of Chicago? No. Yeah.
DeKalb is like the middle of the state, or like it's north.
It's like an hour drive. Is it farther than that?
Yeah.
It's a ways away.
Yeah.
2-3 hours.
Hour and a half. Huh.
Hour and a half. That's all right.
Okay.
All right. Let's talk SoCon. We're going to talk SoCon, fellas. A team that we identified last year. We were not alone, of course, in saying Furman was going to be awesome and hopefully finally finish the journey back to the NCAA tournament. They have the magic moment of the first round against Virginia, the buzzer beater by JP Pegues. Now they lose their 2 stars, Mike Bothwell, Jalen Slauson. I believe both are going to be playing professionally. Slauson, I think, is on an NBA roster. He got drafted. So that kind of opens the potential top for somebody to knock down the door. But this is another league where the all-conference teams got completely destroyed by graduations and transfers. If you're a big fan of returning production, Western Carolina would be your team. They've got a couple of really big-time scorers back. But UNC Greensboro is going to be right there with the best defense in the league under Mike Jones. Chattanooga is kind of reloading, but they need Trey Bonham to get eligible coming back from Florida. All kinds of intrigue here. But Matt, ultimately I settled with Furman being the favorite again. They bring back 3 starters and everybody else from that team. Everybody but those 2 stars is back, and Bob Ritchie knows what he's doing.
Yes, he does. Just so happy for Bob, knocking on the door so many years, and the storybook ending to avenge the devastating buzzer beater at the hands of Nuga the year before. I agree with you on Furman. The team of intrigue for me is Western Carolina, coached by none other than Justin Gray, who was Chris Paul's sidekick, those fun little Wake Forest teams back in the day. Former Pat Kelsey associate, I believe. And you can see in the way they play, like they kind of they're sort of like Charleston in disarray. They don't have the same tactical organization that Charleston has. Their players didn't master it the way Charleston, but they kind of play the same way. And when it works, it's really fun. Like they had some awesome games last year, but they had some really crappy games, but they kind of have like a roller coaster wide range of outcomes. And I think they have some upside this season. Yeah,
I'll sneak this in, Kai, but before you discuss your SoCon takes, Gray was one of the biggest swings in first year interview, second year interview, like just kind of being willing to reveal things. And just, he was very, very humble. Like the first year I got it wrong. Like I did not have it figured out. We tried to play too much like the Pat Kelsey Charleston teams, and we kind of slowed it down, focused on defense a little bit more, and they improved quite a bit. So I could see that crescendo continuing, especially given the production they returned there.
They're Charleston Chew.
I like that.
Fantastic candy.
That's a good nickname.
Furman's clear fave for me. Richie's the best coach in the league, and Pegues is a monster. So I'm cool with the Paladins there. Jim said Greensboro, Samford probably there as well. Fun Samford. Offense.
Buckyball, baby.
Buckyball. Don't count out Dan Earl. Can't count out Brian Earl. Don't count out Darren Earl. Despite Jake Stevens being out, I think him being out of the picture expectedly will be better for Chattanooga, unlike last season where they just kind of fell off a cliff without him when he was gone unexpectedly. So yeah, Furman's my choice there in the SoCon.
Yeah,
I like the Samford.
They had 3 different seasons, like with Stevens, without Stevens, and then when they got him back. Matt, Samford.
No, it just hit me like the Rylan Jones as the face of Buckyball. If that thing goes right with that home court, there's going to be some good imagery coming out of that stadium. A couple of big wins, enthusiastic, now healthy. Rylan Jones, knock on wood.
Yeah, maybe not this year, but ETSU, I think, is going to be right back up with Brooks Savage coming from Steve Forbes' coaching tree. Savage was a part of those dominant ETSU teams when Forbes was there. I think they will eventually resurface to that level as well. All right, next up, Matthias, your Horizon. I believe you didn't write the whole thing this year. You had a little tag team help there in the Horizon, but where did you land on the Horizon? And I guess give me a little breakdown of what we have to look forward to this year.
Yeah, I think the Horizon we trashed for a couple of seasons is just sort of like, this league's in a tailspin. I think it's found its kind of grabbed hold and it's starting to climb its way back up to some degree. The usual suspects, you're right, states, I think are better than last year. They've kind of taken a little bit of a step back. I think they climb back to the familiar part of the totem pole. Now, Northern Kentucky is probably the favorite. Bring everybody back. Darren Horn is so acutely aware of how his seasons follow the same archetype every year. They struggle, then they get hot, and I think they're a tough matchup in the tournament, which they were. I mean, God, they gave Houston a scare. Youngstown's really good again. Jared Calhoun turns over his whole team. Yeah, a lot of intrigue. Some people think IUPUI could be kind of good. I think that's kind of the fun team to watch that was like being ungodly bad for so long. Now they actually have a chance to be somewhat competitive, but they probably will still be pretty bad. I don't know. I'm searching for storylines here. I'll be honest, Kai.
I think the story is the transfer portal's become Calhoun's bag. I love how he's reinvented himself as a head coach because he wasn't great at Youngstown for a while. Now, last year brings in transfers. They dominate. This year they have more transfers. He's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to hit the transfer portal and just be really talented and follow that archetype. And I think it's going to work out for him. I think Northern Kentucky's my pick here. I love the Cade Meyer ad, the D3 point guard TBD. And then Wright State, the question is Trey Calvin, is he eligible? Obviously, if he is, they're probably the favorites.
Not Calvin's eligible. It's the one from Ohio State.
Sorry, Holden.
Tanner Holden. Excuse me.
Tanner
Sorry,
Holden, yes.
Tanner Holden. If he's eligible, I think Wright State goes right to the top. It's Cleveland State, though, right? I'm getting my green.
Wright State.
No, that's Wright State.
You're right State. You got it right. Yep. State.
Tanner Holden. There you go. What do we make of Campy this year? Is my first question.
Talk to him.
Our darling. And also, do you know who was just named the sleeper team by coaches? It's IUPUI.
No, stop.
They finished top 300 this year.
Man, Jim, speaking of night and day coach interviews, Ben Crenshaw. I mean, that guy.
Matt Crenshaw.
Matt Crenshaw.
Sorry. Ben Crenshaw, golfer.
Fine golfer. Ryder Cup season come around the corner. I think that's just a night and day outlook. But no, they're not going to actually do anything in the standings. Sorry. Oh, Kai, Oakland, Greg Campy just got back from Italy. Fun little foreign trip. Good. They played terrible teams. I think won their first 2 games by 50, and then they actually lost to some all-star team. I like them. It's a little too much Rocket Watts. Jim's on record as not being a Rocket Watts advocate, and I think I've subscribed to that theory at this point in his career. So
yeah, very much so. I saw some fun like fan banter between Youngstown State and Northern Kentucky, where Youngstown State has 2 different guys transferring from NKU on the roster, and NKU is like, oh, if you can't beat us, steal our players. Like you lose to us in the tournament. So I think the intriguing team here is Milwaukee to me, honestly. They bring back a fair amount of production, might actually have a point guard this year, Matt. We know going into last year, they just like didn't have that position solved at all. But then BJ Freeman broke out, Marquise Browning broke out. Fields is a great piece from Old Dominion. Langston Wilson's like one of the best athletes in this conference. We'll see if he can figure it out on the court. But so Milwaukee's the one that intrigues me. Kai, we know Bart Lundy can coach, no doubt there.
I was going to ask, is he the best coach in the league?
Ooh, no, it's
kind of early to say. It's probably still Nagy. Yeah,
I think it's Nagy. But a great case. Jimmy, to the Milwaukee point, it's a year where a team like Milwaukee, without like a true top level star, can win it because there aren't any of those around. And that was kind of what got in the way last year, truth be told, with Youngstown. People forget how good, what's his name? Point guard. I'm blanking.
For Youngstown?
Youngstown.
Quisenberry. No, not Quisenberry. He was at Fordham. He wasn't. He was
Cohill.
Cohill.
Cohill's awesome.
He's very good.
It's awesome. So good.
Yep. All right. That's it. That's it for Horizon. We'll wrap that up. Move on to the Big South, where very, very clear favorite here. That'd be UNC Asheville. Morrell, one of the best coaches in the league, and Drew Pember, maybe the best player we'll talk about on this podcast today. That's probably a stretch given some of the top end leagues, but Pember is very, very close to being the best player in all of these 22 conferences. He does lose a big time running mate in Tajion Jones. You've got Bradford, Gardner-Webb, some real defensive squads in there. Winthrop hasn't quite been the same under Prosser as they were under Kelsey. And then, of course, our guy, Griff Aldrich at Longwood, is never going to be an easy out.
All right.
But it's probably Asheville, right?
I got Asheville as long as Pember's playing there. Yeah, I do like Winthrop's roster. I think Mark Prosser can coach, so I'm looking at them. I have no idea what to think about High Point. It's a pretty well-funded school, I believe, new facilities, and their coach is from Creighton, Huss. Maybe there's something brewing there. We'll see. I feel like Radford always overachieves, and they have a good backcourt. I can't believe Radebaugh is still at Chuck South. He's been there forever. Gardner-Webb has some pieces, Matthew, and then Jim mentioned Griff Aldrich. Yeah, never cut him out at Longwood. I won't.
I like Griff. Griff's my guy. I like Griff. That's my take there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think if I'm going like true contender second, Kai, it's the upside of High Point. I think Huss, with that kind of brand new roster that he brought in there's some pieces that really could break out in this caliber of a league. So High Point's maybe the high variance team where, high ceiling, but maybe it doesn't work with a first year coach and a lot of new pieces.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we move on now to the MAAC, Metro Atlantic, and I tried my darndest to come up with a team that would be a favorite that's not Iona, despite losing Rick Pitino and the rest of their roster, but they're the favorite. Tobin Anderson's terrific. They brought in a lot of talent, and boy, Kai, the rest of the roster's got real beat up too.
Yeah, this league is another one that I said is way down. Like way down.
Way down. Way.
But Iona's the favorite. I don't even care who's on the team. Tobin Anderson in the program itself. It's going to be at the top. That's probably is that going too far? The surest bet is of the 22 leagues is Iona winning the MAAC. I might say that.
Yeah, I mean, I always felt that way when Pitino was in charge, no doubt. Tobin Anderson's not Pitino, but he is a great coach, and I do think they might have the best roster also. Like the rest of the teams are, like I said, really got hurt by graduation, transfers. I'm not sure what's going on with the Quinnipiac coaching situation where Dunleavy left and they bring in Tom Pecora.
That's weird.
Yeah,
Sienna's super young, Matthew. Super young.
Yeah, it's not a typical Sienna team where you feel like they're the second banana to Iona.
No, it's Iona and everyone else. Like, does Ryder intrigue you? Question mark?
They do, but
no.
As a possible second place finisher, not a challenger.
It's funny because I think we've all bet the Iona to win the league at like minus 150 or something in the last couple of years. I'm curious what the price is when those pop, because I think Iona won't be as good as last year, but their competition will also be a lot weaker.
Yeah, I'll shout out Mount St. Mary's. My guy Danny Engelstad's got a lot.
Dan's got to go and stay healthy, boys.
Yeah,
I think this will be the worst Metro Atlantic in quite some time.
I feel comfortable with that assessment, Kai. Down year, unfortunately, for the league. All right, next up, I'm glad Matt rejoined us for that. We got a little bit of
sorry, I got a call from a coach that will not be named, and I thought I was going to have to take that, but then he said he'd call me back later. So
he called you to say he's calling you back.
Say, hey, I'm sorry I haven't gotten back to you. I got some time later.
That's nice, I guess.
Kai, we could have managed a 15-minute discussion while Matt talked SWAC hoops with coach to not be named.
Of course.
All right, Kai, we're talking Summit, and you are the Summit extraordinaire expert here. So talk us through it.
Oral Roberts ran the table last year, and Max Asmus is now gone. Paul Mills is now at Wichita State. So Oral Roberts is not the same team, but they're still going to be very good without Mills. They hired internally Russell Springman. I still think they're a top 3 team. So the top 3 is the usual suspects. It's them. It's North Dakota State, who is also going to be a lot better this year despite losing Grant Nelson. And the South Dakota State Jack Bunnies, man, they're back. They were killed by injuries last year. They now have a ton of upside. They're fully healthy, lots of talent, experience. And Zeke Mayo is the player of the year in the Summit. Pretty clear front runner. Matt, we love St. Thomas. Omaha is an upstart darling a little bit. Coaches are whispering about Omaha.
Okay.
I think UMKC is a real sleeper. I trust Menzies implicitly, and this is year 2 in his system. Has a lot back. And North Dakota actually has a lot coming back too. So it's an intriguing league, but at the end of the day, it's same old. Top 3 are the same, Matt.
I think it's cool that we could have St. Thomas and the Roos finish 4th and 5th in this league, assuming that South Dakota State, Oral Roberts, and North Dakota State take the top 3 spots on the podium, and I think that's a pretty good bet. St. Thomas, man, like just a good program.
I think they could finish 2, man. I love St. Thomas.
I kind of agree. I know
they won't finish 2.
A little more athleticism. Oral Roberts a little bit down, not super down. They still got some key pieces back, but I'm just in love with the Tommies. Johnny Tower runs great offense. He's very self-aware, kind of the way he comes across in some of the quotes you have.
Love talking to him. Yeah.
So maybe I'm falling for that, but I also went into it thinking I wasn't going to be real high on North Dakota State. And I was like, oh, they just played a billion freshmen and all those guys are back and they still have good big men. So never mind. I do like North Dakota State.
Yeah. I'm just glad the Jack Bunnies appear to be back. I didn't like them kind of being human last season.
I have a hot take. Zeke Mayo is a little bit of an enigma and a little too erratic for me. And I think he is part of the reason that team frustrated you last year. They were very injured, by the way. And also
they had 6 guys for most of the year. They're
right. Yeah, it wasn't all. It was
out.
I think he will probably be helped a lot by having a fully healthy roster, not having to play 40 minutes and do everything and drive the bus every night.
He shouldn't be their full-time point guard.
I kind of agree with that. I know. I agree.
And it kind of seemed like that's what Henderson was saying in the preview too, but then they didn't go out and get anybody to take that spot. So he's kind of left to take it. And like Kai mentioned, you getting Apple back, he's going to be a monster.
Yeah, that could be huge. Right.
All right. Next up, the America East. Okay, I know you mentioned is Iona the best bet to win any of these leagues. I mean, Vermont, maybe it's not always going to be as easy as Iona's win was last year. There's also one more coming up that is arguably as big a lock as any. But Vermont has just won this league over and over again with John Becker in charge. Bryant assembles talent. UMass Lowell has their best season in years and years and years. And still the Catamounts emerge on top. Matthew, is that going to continue this year, given what they have and given some of the pieces that they retained and brought in?
Yeah, I'll never bet against Vermont ever. But I'm now considering it because Vermont's never had an adversary like Bryant in the mix. And I will say, this is maybe the least terrifying Vermont roster I've seen in over a decade. Is that too far, Mr. McKeon? It doesn't scare you.
Last year's was very.
I'm not sure
scary.
last year.
I thought last year's was scarier. This
Finn
year's
Sullivan was Player of the Year in the America East. I would never have guessed that. In
Player of the
years.
Year. That's insane.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, John Becker's amazing. They're in this league, but I will say, if there's a year they're not going to win it, maybe it's this year. But then everyone says it every year, and that's a stupid regurgitated take. So I don't know.
No, this is
Bryant's
the same.
Pretty good. Bryant's good.
Without looking, Vermont, they're winning the league. But I think Bryant should be a lot better. I think that was a wake-up call last year when they failed to live up to expectations. They do have the most talented guy in the league, and Gross Bullock, who used to be Kenny. His name used to be
Sharif Kenny. I mean, Earl Timberlake should be the most talented guy in the league too.
Is talented. Yeah, they should be really good. Maine is not ready. I'm seeing a lot of Maine love. I like Maine as well. I love Chris Markwood. But let's check the expectations at the door a little bit. They're not winning this league.
Maine is this league's IUPUI. Like,
maybe.
Yeah, fun.
They're
A lot
better
of
than
dudes back. Gonna be
At least
better.
Maine actually made progress last year.
Right.
Like they made
games.
they made the step that IUPUI hopes to make this year.
Yes.
We crowned IUPUI for covering games last year. We crowned them for covering plus 15 against Howard Moore. So
True.
like, again, the expectation meter is very valid.
UMass Lowell, they'll be really good still. I think Pat Duquette's just really got something going. And then Jim,
Yes.
I don't get
Great
the
coach.
Nathan Davis hire at New Hampshire. He was literally fired from Bucknell.
Yeah, why not just kind of keep it rolling there? That was a rather surprising move. Obviously didn't make a ton of noise in the transfer portal, and he brought in one D2 transfer there, which was something that they had kind of been mining well recently. So yeah, was a little surprised by that. I think Albany actually did fairly well this last season. Dwayne Killings has kind of had some weird ups and downs there, but they reached into the portal for some pieces. I know Amari Marshall is one that our guy Jordan Majeski was really excited about. He had like 2 or 3 games at Hofstra that just totally jumped off the page, so that the season-long averages don't look great. But once again, it's Vermont. Going to stick with Vermont until proven otherwise, or until the earth sinks into itself. So that's the plan. Next up, the Colonial, soon to be the Coastal Athletic Association, as they move away from that nomenclature. The top, probably Charleston, UNC Wilmington. That's going to get the most buzz. But man, Kai, I don't want to give away exactly the answers, but in the anonymous coaches poll here, Drexel was given a ton of love. Do they belong up in that stratosphere with UNC Wilmington and Charleston?
Not in my opinion, but boy, was this league down last year. We're talking about the Colonial now. They had 7 teams outside the top 310. 71 to 351 was their spread. That's a huge spread for a league.
They've made some really bad ads.
At least right now.
Team-wise.
Yeah, at least currently. And they just added Campbell, who that program's got a lot of money. It will be good eventually, but again, another like kind of mediocre addition for basketball purposes. I think Charleston's team to beat, but I might pick Wilmington. They're always tough. Their roster looks good, and their home floor is the best in the Colonial from an outsider's perspective. Matt, the sleeper team with Stony Brook by coaches, not to give away everything in the almanac either, Jim, but I just don't think we've seen it yet from them in the CAA. It's been 1 year, I think, but whatever.
Yeah, they had horrific injury problems last year, like before the year even started, and then it kind of kept going. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Matt, I'm going to pick Pat Kelsey pretty much every year. I know Wilmington maybe returns a little more, but I just love the way Kelsey finds talent from all different avenues. The style is really tough to deal with. I'm a Cougar here, Matthew. What are you?
Yeah, I want to highlight my guy Frankie Fingers, Frankie Policelli, Stony Brook defector, Now at Charleston might pick to win the league. And Stony Brook, also my sleeper. I agree with you, coach. Is just horrific injury luck. I like Gino Ford as a coach. I think he's actually pretty good. And he's gotten talent recently. Just hasn't gotten like enough depth of talent. And so when he's had injuries, it just sort of spiraled out of control. If they're healthy, I actually like that roster quite a bit to bounce back. And Charleston is Charleston. I think the institutional standard at this point.
And the best home environment, I don't even think this is in the almanac anymore, but Trask Coliseum for UNC Wilmington.
Yeah.
Just a really tough place to win. They've obviously been terrific. Matt, are we short selling Hofstra? Speedy Claxton won the league last year?
Yes, we are. Really good coach. Top 5, I think.
Yeah, it's not
definitely
an overwhelming roster, but yeah,
top
it's
4?
Definitely a top
3, probably. I'll say 3.
Oh, better than Drexel? Not better than Drexel. I like Drexel.
Yeah, you got a big 3 there with Carlos, Thomas, and Dubar, and I just Plotnikov is such a great name. So shout out to him. And Matt, I know you love Jakob Fritz. That's your boy.
Jakob Fritz can ball.
Is he still there?
Most underrated mid-major player in the last 3 years in college basketball. Absolute renaissance big man. Can dish it, can score it, can defend.
You must have watched the same game I did. I was like, this guy's awesome.
Yes. All right, let's move to
Jakob. Is it Jakob? Yeah.
Isn't he gone?
He's at Hofstra now.
He's at Hofstra. Oh, okay.
Yep, that's why I brought it up. Yep.
Gotcha.
Moving to the last league. Oh, no, not the last league I wrote, but the Patriot. Kai, this is where I think the biggest lock. Just bet Colgate to win the Patriot. Don't even think about what the odds are. It doesn't matter. The last 3 years, they are 44-4. 44-4 against Patriot competition. That does not include winning all 3 tournaments. So I guess what does that make them, like 53-4 against Patriot competition? Yeah. It's been absurd, the run that they're on. You could make a case that maybe they'll struggle now with no Tucker Richardson, and Oliver Lynch Daniels shot 54% from 3 last year, something absurd. But they bring back the best freshman in the league, Braden Smith, the other Braden Smith freshman point guard. Shout out to Purdue. They've got the 2 best big men in the league, arguably, with Keegan Records, and the other big man's name is escaping me. Thank you. No, Moffitt is the start, but the Woodward off the bench is the big, like 270-pound, put him at pinch post and let him do dribble handoffs and get in the way of his guy. They're just incredible at repeated shooting success every single year. The offense is a juggernaut. Matt, I like Lehigh. I really like American as an intriguing team with Dwayne Simpkins taking over and then moving to a different system. Not as Princeton heavy, but it's Colgate with a bullet here. No question.
Yeah, it's Colgate. And actually I was looking at this and I got caught in a rabbit hole of so Colgate the last 2 years, they've shot 40.5%, number 1 in the country last year, 40.3% from 3, number 2 in the country. Those same years, they finished outside the top 250 in free throw shooting. Why can't they make threes but not free throws? That's just been a bizarre.
I don't have an explanation for that at all.
Because they're big.
It's probably the bigs. They're
big guys are getting fouled.
No, it's just like those big guys have a good touch.
Their shooters don't get to the line.
Don't get to the line.
And Tucker Richardson shot 50% from free throw last year.
That is bizarre. Tucker Richardson, who is cash from 3.
Very weird.
Yeah. Who made 265 threes, did not. That's weird. Yeah, so whatever.
But yeah, it's Colgate. We'll see who challenges behind them. I think there's a lot of intrigue because there are 5 new coaches in this league. Literally half the program's changed over. It's a little like the Ivy where continuity matters more because you want to keep guys in house. Transfer portal doesn't have as big of an effect. Picking a newcomer of the year was very difficult in this league because there's just not that many incoming talented transfers ready to make a big impact. A lot of programs still trying to copycat Colgate with just that, like, get old, stay old, and produce winners every single year.
Holy Cross is back within the next 3 years. Dave Paulson. They're back.
There are some people that like them a lot this year.
Right back at the top.
Because they're a little triumvirate of guards. Unfortunately, the only 2 people taller than 6'6" on their roster are both hurt. So they might be
that's bad.
Horrible defensively this year. All right, next up, the MEAC. Matthew, this league actually got good because it shipped off a couple of bottom feeders to your SWAC boys. Yeah. And a couple of programs figured it out, namely Howard, Kenny Blakeney, Poopy Blakeney on Twitter. Great nickname.
This nickname Poopy?
Blakeney. Yes, it's awesome. Brought in a lot of talent there, continues to have talent coming into this year. Seth Towns could be the best player in the league if he's healthy.
Yeah.
We'll see what they're able to do with him, but they've got enough pieces to survive, even if he's just kind of a off the bench fireball type of scorer. Norfolk State, North Carolina Central, a lot of institutional excellence there. Those 2 programs should be pretty solid this year, especially Norfolk. Christian Ings healthier at point. New coach at Coppin State. Matthew, what are you looking at? What excites you or intrigues you about the MEAC?
What excites me is Kevin Brodus brought in my guy Winston Tabbs, is still out here hooping it. We don't know if he's going to ever play or be effective as we all thought he should have been at Boston College. Went to East Carolina, never got on the floor. I think they tried to ease him back in. He's at Morgan State. I just think like Kevin Brodus, Morgan State is the epitome of the power conference talent vacuum that's sort of bringing some guys into this league. Not at all programs, but at a few, and Morgan State being one of those. Also why it's separating itself from the SWAC just for relative comparison. I mean, the fact that this league was better than 4 other leagues and the SWAC last year says a lot. Obviously, and losing 2 bad teams a part of that, but still, it's like in the war of talent, I think MEAC is winning over SWAC.
Yeah. I think
right.
That's definitely right now. Less teams, so I guess it's kind of more concentrated. But yeah, Howard's the favorite. Norfolk State will never count out, and they have a lot of transfers coming in. Jim mentioned and NC Central got Guy Fauntleroy. He's from Austin Peay, and Nate James last year raved about him as a freshman. I think he could take a really big jump and be sort of an all-conference type of guy in the MEAC. UMES, the horseshoe, Jim, is fully out of their butt, hopefully. It looks like their roster's totally gutted, so I'm going to start fading them again after being scared of them for 2 years.
They play like crazy hard. They were playing like a 6'5" guy at center for years, and now they're going to have like more conventional size. And I worry that might give them a lower floor. Like they're just not going to have the same kind of defenders as they've had in the past. You mentioned Fauntleroy at NC Central. Perry Smith's like weirdly kind of the same, like really touted big guy recruit at Vermont of all places, a program that has won like crazy. But he is now at NCCU with Moten, who thanked his lucky stars for having a full year last year. I think it was 2 straight years. They had like month-long COVID stoppages and barely held practices. So he enjoyed being able to get back on the court last year. But yeah, I think it's the kind of the same Howard with their talent, and then the NCCU Norfolk State kind of lurking with Matt's Morgan State boys and Winston Tabbs being the intriguing off the radar candidate. Next up, the OVC, the first year post Belmont, post Murray State. Not a huge year for the OVC, unfortunately, sunk down towards the bottom of the mid-major rankings. Morehead State won it with their half-court crawling, knock you down size in the paint. Everybody else wanted to get up and down, but come and postseason tournament, that's when SEMO took off, won 4 games in 4 days, ended up making the NCAA tournament. Big one for Brad Korn there. The league adds Western Illinois. Matt, second straight year, the poor SIUE is hoping Rayshon Taylor gets healthy from an ACL tear.
I know.
Just a bummer. But the Tennessee schools are pretty solid. Tennessee State really starting to elevate the talent there with Penny Collins. What are you looking at in this league other than it's probably Morehead State being picked at the top again?
Yeah, no team in this league excites me. Like the winner of this conference in the tournament won't even like excite me. My favorite team is SIUE, St. Louis, and really collapsed down the stretch last year after an awesome, fun non-con. They had some close road efforts, one at SLU, which is like a huge win for that program, Baroni. I think they have a chance to win the league this season, but Morehead's probably the right pick. They just, the way Spradlin's dominated the conference, he talked about this, I think, in the Almanac, how it's like, we know what the conference is, and that's kind of how we attack it. And they've kind of come out of nowhere the last couple of years. I think they can repeat that again, even though no team really scares me at all.
Morehead's 44-12 last 3 years in the
really
OVC. It's their league right now.
Yeah, without Janai Broom last year, they're just
without Broom. SIU returns a lot. Yeah, Korn has proven a lot. I clearly.
Korn, sorry, Baroni's
at SIU, but I was saying SEMO too.
SEMO, Korn,
Korn, yeah. Tennessee State does have a lot of talent, but man, they've had talent under Collins last couple of years and still have kind of disappointed, at least in my opinion. So I'm not sure on them. I wonder how Southern Indiana is going to do without Swope, because that was a fun team last year, new to D1, but Isaiah Swope was like the man, first team all conference type of guy. So TBD on the Screaming Eagles.
I think they're in trouble. And Stan Gerard was great, but their shot making with Swope, Trevor Lakes, and Jelani Simmons, it was like they took some bad shots. Like I don't have their shot selection number handy from shot quality, but it had to be low, and their shot making had to be super duper high, because it just, those guys took some bad shots and they made them. That helped them compete. To the point on Morehead State, Matt, you talked about like how they know how the league plays. Like it's the second fastest conference in the entire country, and Morehead State's 345th in tempo. Like they just completely play the opposite style, force you into this half court bare knuckle brawl and beat you up with their size. And they've got Deontay Miles from Xavier, who's going to be arguably the best big man in the league after they had Broom and then Alex Gross last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's just sort of like how North Dakota State for a while had that identity difference from the rest of the league. I think that kind of played into their success. Now that league's kind of changing. It's not really the same distinct difference, but yeah, Morehead zig when the rest of the guys zag, figure out how to defend the zag, maximize the zig Kai. There's your recipe. Boom, blueprint.
Just one fun stat. This conference had 4 less teams outside of the top 300 than the Colonial, and a lower percentage of teams outside the top 300 than the Colonial, which just shocked me.
Yeah. I did look up the numbers. Southern Indiana, 312th in shot selection, 24th nationally in shot making. Yeah, they just had shot makers. It was wild. So we'll see how that goes this year. Next up, we've got a couple left here. Matthew. Oh, not your SWAC boys yet. Southland first. Texas A&M Corpus Christi won it last year, the regular season and the tournament. Steve Lutz is gone, so it's a little bit more open. Or is it because Will Wade's here at McNeese and that roster just kind of blows away everything else in this conference? If you're asking me, at least. Matthew.
Oh, to me. Yeah, McNeese is the only thing worth discussing in this conference, if I'm being honest. I was trying to debate which conference makes me more depressed, this or the NEC, just with the way they're both heading. But yeah, the Will Wade roster looks like it reminds you of the Northwestern State roster, just way better. Like a bunch of guys that a coach from a good program just brings down in this like kiddie pool, and they just dominate everybody. And then whatever, I'm sure he'll bounce it to another job in 2 years here. But yeah, this is going to be McNeese's to lose. It's funny though, if Wade struggles or has a few injuries and gets a little dicey, like to see Wade have to like grind his way to a top end conference finish in the Southland would also be kind of a funny storyline. But there's no reason that should happen. I think he just crushes people in this league. This league's bad now. It's
McNeese by a mile. The talent by far. New Orleans is always going to be competitive, but they're frustrating as a team, especially to bet on. Corpus Christi's done with no more Lutz. They're a JUCO team right now. So is Northwestern State without the D1 talent. Both those teams literally are all JUCO guys right now. It's going to be really interesting to see how they actually perform. And then, the rest of the league's kind of depressing, Jim. Austin Clonch, our dude, he took a job at Alabama, so he's not at Nichols anymore. That program's probably done for a little bit. Sad state of affairs for the Southland.
Yeah, Nichols could be in a little bit of trouble. I'm not super enthused with Nichols coming in next year. Tevin Sadler, I think, is the youngest coach in Division I. They like doubled down on it after Clonch left.
He's like 28, I want to say.
Yeah, it's wild.
Under 30. I'm sorry. Like, I just don't.
He's 28. He was born in 1995.
Yeah.
As a principal, as an AD, I would never hire someone under 30 years old. I was like, you got to at least be 30.
At a D1 program? No way.
30.
Yeah. I think the one I'm second most intrigued by here, just looking at it, is Northwestern State with that army of junior college transfers. Like Rick Cabrera is super well connected in that world, and they got some talented guys. Like Addison Patterson was at Oregon as like a 4-star top 100 recruit. He could be a beast. He was great in a really strong JUCO conference last year. Add some guys around him, so potentially them. But all right, Matthew, let's talk SWAC. Your darling, your baby, your favorite league in the entire country. I know that's true. Don't even dare refute it. Let's talk SWAC.
Fun storylines abound in the SWAC, but the nemesis that was Johnny Jones last year still, the 1 year Texas Southern wasn't like awesome. They still found a way to get to the tournament, the SWAC tournament. 8 of the 10 teams qualify, and they won it despite being like the 6th best team, debatably. And last year had 2 of, Grand Lake State, one of like the best team, the league's seen like the last 10 years. The league is quickly climbing. I think more coaches than talent, but now you get some talent coming in. Deshaun Ruffin, former top 50 recruit from Ole Miss, is like the biggest splash playing for Mo Williams at Jackson State, who had an awesome first season. Kind of people didn't realize there. And then Grand Lake State brings a lot back. It's a good league. I just think it's interesting to see how a lot of the teams are just trying to mimic the Texas Southern blueprint by just getting a ton of size and bigs. Like every coach you talk to, like that's kind of what they're tired of Texas Southern winning. They're just trying to beat Texas. It's kind of like the WCC trying to we got to just beat Gonzaga somehow. It's our only chance.
Yeah, they were slammed by injuries last year, Texas Southern. So they're back. Jackson State's the team, man. Ruffin's going to be player of the year, right? In this league, they've 8 of their top 9 back or something like that. Yeah.
They have all 5 starters back.
Like the top 3 or 4 bench guys.
And 2 of those guys won't start because I assume Ruffin will start. And he brings over the guy who started for him at Alabama State. He was really good. Yeah. So they're good.
Will Prairie View be back? This is a team that used to be really good.
I'm trying to get Byron Smith on the horn. I can't get him. I'm worried that he's lost his fastball. He's transferred his fastball to his former mentor, Landon Bussey, who has cooking. Alcorn is cooking right now.
Maybe that's why Prairie View's not as good this year, Jim, or in the past couple of years, because Bussey left.
Yep. Yeah. Sometimes we got to draw the straight line there between the assistant leaving and maybe the mentor not being quite as good. Baylor, is that the case? We'll find out.
Yeah.
We're going to see. But Matt, I kind of like Southern. I don't know what to think about Kevin Johnson, the Tulane assistant, but that roster at least makes me raise an eyebrow. There's some guys who've done some things at other places there, and that's typically what you want to look for in the SWAC. But yeah, it's going to be pretty hard to pick anybody but Jackson State. Texas Southern's at least going to be up there if healthy, but Jackson State's the best roster combined with arguably the best player and one of the better coaches.
Crazy that Southern fired Sean Woods. Like, they finished 3rd in the league. Like, you look at his record over his 3. I don't think they were bad. They're pretty good, actually. I wonder if he just wasn't the most agreeable behind the scenes. Anyway, league should be fun this season. I guess I'm going to go with Jackson State. It feels like the right answer.
Yeah, come on. Don't overthink
Devils?
Don't overthink it.
My Delta State stand up 20-12, Kai, against the spread last year. They went head to head against Vegas 32 times. They won 20.
You mean Valley?
Valley? Yeah. The Valley? Itabetta?
I was so burned. Yeah. Good for them. Good for them.
Yep. It was a new regime there. It wasn't the Lindsey Hunter.
George Ivory.
Get up and down. And
yeah, he's actually really good.
Ill-advised. Yep. All right. Last league to hit, the NEC. We talked last offseason that we were worried about where it was going to go talent-wise. And per Ken Palm's rankings, it was the worst league in the country, independence notwithstanding. That's just Chicago State. Looks mostly like more of the same this year. They do add Lemoyne to the mix. They lose St. Francis, Brooklyn. They are exiting Division One. Kai, we've kind of glanced at this league. This isn't one I've done an extensive deep dive on quite yet. The 2 that excite me, Sacred Heart, definitely got a lot of talent there with Anthony Latina. They could be pretty good. And I'm kind of intrigued by LAU with Rod Strickland bringing in his 2 kids, Ty and Terrell. Those guys can both play, have been at higher levels. So I'm at least interested to see what happens there after last year. He took over late and just didn't really even have a roster.
Yeah, I think they're going to be a lot better because he has an actual off season and he has real talent on the roster this year. So yeah, intriguing. I think Sacred Heart is stacked though. They should win this league. If they don't win this league, it's an indictment on the coach because by far the best roster in my opinion. But Merrimack's going to be there, coaching, defense. It's going to be there despite losing Minor. Then Wagner's always kind of around. What's Fairleigh Dickinson without Tobin Anderson, Matthew? What are they?
I don't know. It's like, man, God bless FDU. The league was a train wreck last year. Like, that was the white knight that rode in at the last second to give that league any sort of respect. Mm-hmm. Still can't believe FDU was the worst interior defense in the NEC last year, and they took Purdue to the house. So anyway,
Edie had 22 points.
Yeah, he did his share. Probably could have done a lot more though. Yeah, you're right. Sacred Heart actually pretty good, Kai. I just looked at their roster, fairly talented. But it's to call any team in this league loaded. I have to raise an eyebrow at because again, I think the league really is
they're loaded, off, relatively speaking.
But they are relatively speaking. I agree. I see some names that I think will have a fun time in that league. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Right.
I've been waiting for the Central Connecticut takeoff a little bit because I'd always thought Sellers was going to be Tobin Anderson-esque, the guy coming up from D2, knows that program. I believe he's a grad of Central Connecticut. Now they're finally getting older. They played a lot of freshmen and sophomores the last 2 years, a little more junior, senior heavy this year. Maybe they step up into that conference contendership. And yeah, as Kai mentioned, Merrimack, they're going to be there. They bring back Edmead, the boomerang transfer. I think he needs a waiver, but if he's eligible, that helps. And then Durkak, the freshman guard, I think is going to eventually be a star there, if not already this season. That's about it. Matt, any other NEC thoughts?
I want Kai's at the buzzer Lemoyne prognosis.
Lemoyne, better than you expect, no matter where they start. Okay. I don't even know. They're actually pretty old. They have like 5 or 6.
Yeah, they're all seniors and super seniors. So it's all these D1, these new transfer
always
up teams. Because they always like thread the needle at the perfect timing. They get like all of their dudes back for like that magical first year D1 ride. They're all seniors. They've all been playing together for 3 years. I bet they're good. I'm sure they're good.
That two of their key players were on IUPUI's absolutely horrific team 2 years ago. Two of their key starters.
Mike Schmitz, Nate McLaurin, and DePersia. Yeah, crap. Okay, I might retract that take then.
Yeah, that is somewhat relevant, unfortunately.
But if they're like 350, they'll finish 340. How about that?
Yeah, they'll finish ahead of their preseason prognosis. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, I believe that is it, fellas. That is all 22 leagues. Again, if you want to learn more, buy the almanac. There's going to be extensive detail. We referenced a lot of the coach, the coach surveys that are going to be in there. Those are really, really fun to just kind of get a take on what the people in the know think about each league, rather than us uninformed outsider idiots, me, Matt, and Kai. But thank you for tuning in. Thank you to the chat. Lively stuff in there. Always enjoyable to have that going on. We'll be back next week. Like I said, Kai and Jim doing the American and the A10, while Matt is honeymooning all across the world, gallivanting. So tune in then. Looking forward to it. Thanks again. See you next week.